Welcome to my little tutorial on this Mayfly emerger we like to call Bucket of Blood. It's quite successful. This is a size 12 hook, but 2 times long and 2 times fine, and it's a curved hook. You could do this on a straight shaft as well. You could size up and size down. I've done these as small as size 18s. So lay down a thread base, and then I use just 3 thin strands of crystal flash here. So tie them in all the way down to the bend, and then snip them off close, about the same distance as the gape of the hook. I use a little clothesline to keep them all neat and tidy for the next fly. You need some tailing material. Pheasant tail would work, Coq de Leon would work. This is mallard flank. Quite like the look of this stuff. So measure it up, snip it to the right size. If you give your bobbin a counterclockwise spin, that thread jumps backward for you, it makes it a little easier. Okay, and then advance your thread, just not quite as far this time. We'll tie in a biot. This is a dun colored biot. And I usually tie the thread off at the front here. You can use a whip finish tool or a half hitch, something like that, but I usually want to get my thread out of the way so I can use the rotary function of my vise. And I put a little head cement here too, just to keep that goose biot in place. It can be a little bit fragile. So grab your trusty little Hackle pliers and then just spiral this up the shank. And they're usually like just long enough to get as far as we want here. Sometimes I have to leave the hook upside down like this to tie it off, but that's no problem. So tie it off, bump the camera a couple of times, save your work, and then snip it off close. And then just tidy it up a bit. Now I like to reposition the hook a little bit so that the front of it is very horizontal. We're going to tie in a deer hair wing, and it really helps to put a little base of dubbing down, and that way the hair doesn't want to spin around the hook. So just a thin dubbing. This is just dry fly, or dry fly dubbing. Now this deer hair isn't the best quality I've ever had, so I find it really helpful to clean it really well. So grab just the tips, sort of spread it out a little bit, and then hopefully you can grab most of, if not all of, the broken ones. The fish probably don't care that much, but it does look a little nicer when you get all those broken ones out. And then give it a good stacking. To pull them out with your right hand or your right thumb. Switch to your left, and then one last little chance to clean it up if you see any broken ones or any extra fluff in there. And then to tie it on again, give your bobbin a counterclockwise spin, 3 wraps, and then tighten a little bit, and then wrap back, and then quite tight on the way forward. That secures it in there pretty good. Snip it off, snip the butt ends off close. We'll tie in a hackle now, and this is my trick for the hackle. Grab it in your hand so the curved side is facing towards you, or the back of the feather is towards you. And then pull off what's on the top and snip off about half that much on the bottom. That leaves you those little barbules to sort of help you tie it in a little bit better. But the missing barbs on the top will help the fly orient properly when you spin it around. So we'll add a little bit more dubbing now. This is that same dry fly dubbing. Just cover up the thread wraps and make it look a little neater from underneath. And with your thread right against the deer hair, make sure all the deer hair is on top, and then with your right thumb just push it back. And then build up a bit of a thread dam here, making sure that you've got a nice little ramp for the hackle so it doesn't slip off. And then wrap the hackle a couple or 3 times in the back, and then couple or 3 times in the front, usually a total of 4 or 5 times all the way around. And catch your feather. I like to do 3 times and then a couple of tight ones, and then snip it off close. And sometimes it's really neat and tidy, and sometimes it needs a little cleaning up like this one. So there's a few of those to get rid of. A little easier when the camera isn't so close. Alright, now we'll do a whip finish. I do 2 whip finishes and then it builds up a bit of a head. You don't want to do too many turns. This is 6/0 thread, so it's pretty thick. It builds up a head quite quickly. Snip the thread and then just a little bit of head cement. Sometimes I cut the hackle off the bottom of this fly if I want it to ride a little lower, but I generally tie them, leave them like this, and then when I'm on the stream I can cut off the bottom hackle. There you go, bucket of blood. The cutthroat trout, love it. Thanks for joining me.